WHIV-LP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade. Jeff and Robert here on the show, just to kind of talk about what's going on in the city and national politics. What's going on in Palestine? The war on Christmas is happening right now, literally in like people don't realize the city of Bethlehem, where Jesus was supposedly born, and why we celebrate Christmas or whatever, Christians at least, like that is in the West Bank. That is in the West Bank of Palestine.
I was trying to explain to my mother that, why Christmas is canceled in Bethlehem, and she was like, "Nuh-uh." She was like, well, she didn't say nuh-uh. Let's be real. She was just like, "What church are you?" Because she had to. You know how you can be inside somebody's head. I know she was thinking like, "Oh, those pesky Muslims canceled Christmas," and I'm like, "No, that a lot of Christians live in Bethlehem," and I sent her the stuff.
You know who else lives? A lot of lives in the West Bank and in Gaza? Jews, and they're getting bombed just like everybody else. And it's like, I don't know, man. It's really, we're just jumping right into it. But I mean, again, the war in Gaza just never seeming to end, and atrocity after atrocity keeps happening. By the state of Israel and its military, and by settlers in the West Bank as well. People obviously all eyes are on Gaza right now, but there's settlers doing the thing in the West Bank and continuing to push west and displacing more settlements, and there's violence and more neighborhoods and people who live there, and there's violence and all this stuff. So it's happening more and more, and it's kind of at least it seems like to me, I don't know if it feels the same way to you, like people, almost like what happened with the war in Ukraine a couple of years ago, or last year. Jeez.
I know, a couple years ago?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
But, that sort of became normalized really fast. I think when it comes to, normies at this point, they're sort of, soft against the poll after poll says that, they don't support, arming Israel, and it's definitely age biased as well. Younger people definitely more supportive Palestinians, but a majority of Americans are calling for a ceasefire, and again, it's just one of those sorts of things where the government can just sort of change the subject, put your fingers in your ears, and talk about oh look, Trump is getting banned on the ballot in Colorado or whatever. We can look at this now and not pay attention to what's going on in Gaza anymore.
I mean, I really I know we talk a lot of smack about normies and stuff like that, but I really feel for them because it's their mental stack is just overloaded.
Oh,
and it's just it's just too much. It's the election, the primaries are coming up. We got multiple genocides going on all over the world. The price of beef is through the roof. Gas is actually a little lower. I'm just trying to rattle off stuff that normies care about, but it's just how can they
markers
even
of how you're doing?
how we're old enough to where we've had jobs, you worked at school. I've had office jobs before, and you go in and people discuss the TV in the break room is usually on the news, and people discuss ain't it crazy that the Jeffrey Epstein flight logs and are going to be dropped in a couple days, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
that kind of thing gets talked about at work, and people go, "Oh man, it's crazy." I hate politics. Nobody talks about current events in my office.
Yeah.
Because it's just too much.
No, they talk about The Voice, and they talk about The Masked Singer, and they talk about whatever, whatever. If you, there's no, I don't know. You work in an office right now. I don't work in an office. Is there
when you were a teacher, it's the same kind of way. Y'all went into the teacher's lounge and shot the BS. But it's what were we asking? I'm sorry.
I mean, but like water cooler conversations do continue to happen, but like it's not about like any of this stuff. Like there's this sort of sense that like people are like more politicized than ever because of like how we interact with things like social media, and that does feel true, but it's not necessarily things that people talk about with each other. You know, like there's a lot of like assumptions that people make about what somebody believes, and you just don't talk about it. You just talk about something else.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's you're not looking to get into a fight at work because you're just trying to get through your day.
It's a little different in my work because the only thing I can say is that to kind of refute what I just laid down, it's not a complete wall of silence because in New Orleans there's a lot of black people and most of my office is filled with black people. So if it's something that like even touches people with melanin, you'll see black people talk about it, but even then they kind of talk about it. I don't know. It's just not like it used to be like a couple years ago. But yeah, it's really, I don't know. People aren't blessed with my autism, I guess. Like they don't have the ability to hyperfixate on something like I do and just perseverate forever. So, you know, it's like, how are you feeling though? Like you're not the people, like you're not a normie. I'm a terminally online guy. I don't know. I'm thinking to where like, if things do get really bad, I'd probably need to stop being as terminally online, but maybe I've already crossed the Rubicon. There's no going back. So I might as well just keep pushing forward. But how are you feeling lately with, you know, not necessarily your work because it is direct action. It's not just pure electoralism, but it's a kind of direct action that connects to electoralism. Like, how are you feeling? Because I am completely on the accelerationist Raja Ghul train now. Like,
burn it down.
I'm not even joking because I have this kind of weird, I won't call it a fantasy. It's terrible. And the reason why I can say, and I want you to like correct me. I want you to push back on me on this. Don't just accept it. I'm throwing this out here so I could get some pushback from somebody I trust. It's just like the only thing I feel like in America I have to hope for now is, you know, even if I lived, and I always say this all the time, like New Orleans, I live in New Orleans, it doesn't matter. If I lived in Cincinnati, my vote would matter, you know, like I did 10 years ago, it would matter a whole lot. But I'm not voting for anybody. I'm not even gonna leave my house, you know, on election day, because it's just like, unless there's something like down ballot, like a city initiative, and I'll just vote for that and go home. But it's a waste of my time. We live in a one-party state. The only thing I feel like, honestly, I can hope for at this point, and I don't feel bad about voicing this because I don't have any control over it. I can't. It's like watching a football game at this point. All I can do is just place a bet. Is that Trump gets reelected, and here's the kicker, and he has to do what he say he's going to do. And you know, what's he on now? The poison blood of the immigrants or whatever.
Yeah, he's literally like.
I'm like, oh, you want to kick out all the I'm making air quotes right now, the illegal immigrants. You want to kick them out? Okay, great. I'm all for it now. Let's round them all up. Let's kick them out, because this country has never existed and been prosperous without slave labor or near slave labor. So if somehow the illegal immigrants were Thanos out of existence and out of this country tomorrow, it would destroy our labor base, it would destroy our economy, and then the board would at least be, I'm making air quotes again, reset. And I think about myself, it's like, this is a lot of like Jimmy Dore talk, like, oh, the people will rise, and I'm like, but at this point, like, I don't know what's left, because in that scenario I just mentioned, would things more than likely get worse? Yes.
Oh yeah.
But is there a possibility of like people actually uniting and being like, okay, capitalism is actually our enemy, and instead of this thing we have right now where we're just like slowly marching off the cliff? And it's just like, yeah, things are just getting progressively worse anyway, even with the quote unquote good guys in charge. So I'm kind of like on the I'm gonna say kind of like I'm on the acceleration train, and I don't feel bad about saying that again because I'm not out there hitting the accelerations button.
Right.
I'm just sitting back and watching the show. It's like that Onion article from maybe like 10, 15 years ago where it said Al Qaeda's defeated. It had a Photoshop guy of like a guy in the desert, like watching TV, but it's like Al Qaeda's laid down its arms because they realize they don't have to do anything anymore. They can just sit back and watch the show because the contradictions are just so evident that it's just like the machine looks like it's going to tear itself apart.
Yeah,
I don't know. Tell me I'm crazy. Tell me I'm wrong.
I'm not going to tell you you're crazy because you feel the way that you feel, and like that's legitimate to a certain extent. Now, the idea, if you ask me, that if like the bottom fell out and like we just decided to go into like just the whole system just burns itself to the ground, like a lot of the structures that hold that system in place are going to fall apart for sure, and that's like one thing. But at the same time, and this is why I can't sort of like get with you at least in agreement on the position, but I understand where you're coming from with it. Like the whole problem with that becomes like when there is no lid on any of this stuff, then the people who already have power are going to have more power. And I think that that's the issue right now is that any protections that do currently exist are going to fall away, and there's going to be think about walking on a road that is paved and like walking through mud, and we're going to be in like quicksand if that happens. There's no foundation, there's no structure for anything. That's my sort of takeaway. But
I get that
tell
completely.
anybody what to do or how to act in this because I'm not going to like if me telling somebody to go out and vote for Joe Biden makes them feel like I'm telling them to go vote for like a war criminal and somebody who's like supporting genocide, I can't tell you that that's not the case because that's what he's doing. So I'm not going to like there's not that much that I can do as far as like I'm not going to wag my fingers at people who feel that way. A lot of times I can disagree with them because I think that there's a lot of like the thing that I constantly and always think about in these sorts of situations is the labor board, the National Labor Relations Board, and things like that, where unions are actually able to advance in this like horrible, hellish situation. Like you see, like UAW won their big strike, and then you see that wages at even Tesla just this week increased because of what happened at UAW. They're rolling out this national program that they wouldn't have been able to do had a lot of this. One, the rules hadn't changed at least a little bit, and also two, if there hadn't been like victories that had been pursued and fought for by the workers. Now, again, it's a little bit of a it's hard to think that this situation would have happened in a worse climate. But
so here's my thing with that, and like you are correct, and you're correct here. But the only thing I can say is that like you're talking about the best thing that the Biden White House has done in these 4 years. But here's the thing that. The best thing that he's done was literally just get out of the way. Yeah. Like, do nothing. Do nothing was the best thing.
Yeah. So well, I mean, he showed up to a picket, which is right.
Something. Like whatever, dude. But I'm talking about actual like legislation I can take to the bank. Like, yeah. So just by getting out of the way. So like that, if that's where the bar is.
Yeah, it's
like,
low.
Like what? What?
It's low.
I really can't do nothing with that. Yeah, but I see what you're saying. And what you're saying right now is like, labor action and those people's work. Yeah, but those people those actions had nothing to do with the Democratic Party.
No, and also it's so there is and there isn't. So like things would have been potentially different had there been a different administration. There could be definitely like things. I mean, you've seen what happened when we've talked about this in the past when the government would essentially side with bosses and say, oh, you're creating destruction or whatever, and send out the National Guard. In history where they would do that, and there's definitely ways that a Trump administration would put their thumb on the scale against and not get out of the way and make things worse. Now, again, and I keep saying this again, I'm not advocating for. I'm not. It's outside of my job. I'm not going to be like going up to people and saying like, "Wow, you really need to vote for Joe Biden this time," because like I just ain't got it in me. I just ain't got it in me to go and do that. To like if I go up and talk to somebody whose cousin or brother or sister, aunt, uncle, dad, mom, kids, nephews, nieces, whatever, friends, like got killed in Gaza in a bomb by the IDF, and I'm going to try and convince them, and they're convinced that Joe Biden is responsible for this. I'm not going to try and tell them that that's not the case, because I think that he is in a lot of ways. I mean, he's held by the Netanyahu administration this entire time. He's pushed for or he's not necessarily pushed for, but he's had their back every single step of the way, and been fighting against any kind of actions that would impede Israel from doing a genocide in both Gaza and the West Bank. You're super like charitable because I would say it's not even the Biden administration and the State Department and the White House does not have Israel's back. They are cucked. They are getting run. They're getting pimped. It's not even like, oh, we got your back. It's that we're saying, hey, can you do less murder? And Israel is shooting us the bird and saying, you will cut us checks and give us more weapons and you will like it. Yeah.
Because we are your foothold and it's like we are your foothold in the Middle East. We are your it's like like I said weeks ago, the tail is definitely wagging the dog. And at what point, like, anybody in the government going to show any kind of spine and backbone and be like, what? Like, what's going on here?
Like I said in the past, like they would have the government or the people, somebody in the government or somebody in the Biden administration or whatever would actually have to have a problem with what Israel is doing. And my take on it is like they don't have a problem with what they're doing. They might have a problem with them being like the optics of it being like pushed around by the quote unquote state that we're supporting or whatever. But like at the end of the day, like it's lockstep no matter what. I mean, it is what it is, and that is Biden is actually worse than a lot of other, like, people don't realize Biden is actually worse than like Republican presidents on this stuff. Like, he's very, 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 very bad.
Yeah, because didn't the story go that about the Suez Canal that Reagan called or Reagan was like, what do I do about this? And his advisors said, you tell them to stop. You're the president of the United States. And he goes, I didn't know I had that kind of power. Isn't that how the story goes?
I don't know.
Talk, and I'll look it up real quick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, like, I mean, just to be, like, clear about this in another very specific instance, I mean, there was a quote in the 90s we've talked about on this show where Joe Biden literally just came out and said if the state of Israel did not exist, the United States would have to invent it, to essentially not necessarily because of what he believes in terms of like the actual like pluses or minuses of Zionism. I believe that he is one, and he at least says that he is one or whatever. Which is he like had this wild and crazy speech last week where he was basically like, you don't have to be a Jew to be a Zionist or whatever. And it's like, we know, brother, there's more Christian Zionists than there are Jewish Zionists in this country and in the world. But like, the thing is that somebody like Joe Biden also understands and has always been somebody who pushed for American empire and advancing the imperial project abroad. He's been a war hawk since he entered Congress for like 40, 50 years, however long he's been around. So he's not the kind of person that you can possibly ever really expect to to stand in the way. I mean, remember how he escalated and sort of like started drawing red lines or whatever when Russia started pushing in on Ukraine, and I think actually the U.S. intervention potentially, well, I mean, I think Russia was going to do what Russia was going to do no matter what, but like the sort of like pushing as hard as he did actually kind of push did not, I don't know, he didn't do anything to chill the situation out, that's for sure.
No, for sure. But we're just, again, I just can't, I mean, I do understand, I literally understand it, but it's just at some point you're just like, what is, like, if you're working at that, even if you don't care about Palestinians at all, like at some point you just have to be like, what is this? What is this? What is this? Who is this little bean Israel telling us what to say and what not to say in the media? Like, this is crazy. Like, I don't. It's like a rabid dog, or a wild. It's more like a child that just goes into like the grocery store and just tears it up, and then the parents are just like, oh, you know, Johnny, he's just our special little lad. He's just so quirky. And this child is just like picking up eggs and just throwing them one by one on the floor in the grocery store. Yeah. And the parents are just going, oh, well, And
again, like to just talk about how, like, what the goals are of not just like, I mean, this is people following the lead of what, like, Benjamin Netanyahu and many of his people who advise his advisors, like Ben-Gvir, are saying, which are like essentially saying that, like, they're saying, hey, we're going to displace these Palestinians and we're going to take over this land and we're going to like literally just like kill and displace these Palestinians and get them out of here because this is our land. And they keep saying this over again. Their goals could not be more clear. So much to the point, like, I'm looking at a photo right now and it's making my blood boil, of this like young woman who's dressed up in IDF gear standing on the beach in Gaza.
I've seen that.
Yeah, she's like,
doing the look back at it pose.
Yeah, she's doing like the back at it, being like and oh my god, like the IDF like girly posts or whatever. Yeah. Like the I'm slay queening while like doing a genocide in Gaza is just like that's everywhere. Like, if you just look at the social media like program and the propaganda that Israel's putting out, it's disgusting. But this woman is doing like this look back pose, and literally she says this on her Facebook or Instagram stories. It says, I'll have to create, she's standing at the beach with a gun, wearing a helmet in her military gear, and she said, I'll have to recreate this photo in a bikini once it's all over. Their shore is so beautiful, they don't even deserve it, for real, smiley face. And it's just like, yeah, you're literally like people like this. And this is the propaganda program of Israel. They're literally saying we're displacing Palestinians and taking their land.
That's kind of the thing, isn't it? It's like, the thing that boggles my mind is we've always, I feel like when you become a leftist, like, one of the things that you get handed along with your beret at the international leftist meeting is like this.
You get a carton of cigarettes.
Some bathtub gin, and like
you get assigned like a bar, like
you get a thank you note from George Soros, and with like a print, like a stamped signature, and then you get your little your talking points, your little green book or whatever. And, one of the things is like, okay, Israel has 1 million propaganda campaigns, also the Mossad, also Shin Bet, all that. And in our heads, we, have built up that, man, they are good at this. They are devious. But really, you've got this nation state that makes content like, and they're acting like, oh, we won't, these stupid Americans, we won't let them, we'll just say it in Hebrew.
Yeah.
Because Google, it's 1997 and Google Translate doesn't exist.
Yeah, or like
we hear you, we see you.
You have like Twitch streamers and like people who doing YouTube videos and podcasts or whatever who speak Hebrew as well and who can speak all these languages and just like translate in real time. Like you can translate a speech that somebody's doing in real time, and like that woman, I don't remember what her name was, but like it was a woman essentially describing the goals, the displacement and settler colonial goals by the settler colonial state of Israel to again displace Palestinians and take their land and just get them out of there. Like it's
and propaganda is one thing. Like, get your money. Like if the state of Israel, was just like, hey, do you want a trip to Israel, whatever, and come back and say how pretty the beaches were? Like, okay, great. Like, I'm trying to get, like, it's literally called this, but I'm trying to get one of these white monkey jobs from China to where they just pay influencers to be like, China number one, China great, China best. As long as you don't make me say something like, the internet is like something absurdly ridiculous. Like, the internet is free and accessible, and there is no genocide or imprisonment going on with the Uyghur. Don't make me lie. Just be like, I like China. I like the way the buildings look. Like, and then give me a check, and I'll
high-speed rail.
I'll take it, bro. Like, I'd be like John Cena. John Cena's like the most popular, probably biggest white monkey in the world because he just cuts Chinese propaganda all day. But like, yeah, they're not making him talk about like Uyghur Muslims or anything like that. So it's like, yeah, whatever. Take their money. Who cares? But once you go into a point of just like, oh yeah, we need to murder everyone, and we're gonna say it in our secret code language that nobody understands except the Duolingo bird. Like, what? Like we literally see you, and then you got the United States going, nah, they didn't say that. She's standing right next to you saying that. I want to kill everyone. Satan is good. Satan is a power. Like, nah, they're not doing anything weird in that house. They're like the Burbs. You got Tom Hanks going, oh, they're normal. They're completely normal. No.
Yeah. You're one of those sort of like situations where like I don't know, man. I feel like we're saying the same thing over and over again, but it's just like one of these really like the scale of it. Like when you see it, I mean, again, this has happened before. We know about it. We've seen it happen in the past in United States history. But when you see it happening in real time, when you see these things happening like while it's going down. Like, it's genuinely shocking. You know what I mean? Like, just sort of, you feel, and this is what, I mean, this is what it's designed to do. This is what propaganda is designed to do, is that it's supposed to make the people who oppose it feel like they're the ones that are crazy, and they have to question reality. And that, it's a force like gravity. It's supposed like it doesn't really matter what is actually true. The sources that the anchors that people associate with what truth and reality are telling you one thing, and so like it's not like, oh, it's illegal to like disagree with the government or whatever, but the fact that government is providing information, then like that's supposed to be credible. Like that's one of the whole points of it all. And the fact that that's not the case, and it's not the first time, and never going to be the last time. Like, it's obviously like nothing new or whatever. But like when you see it happening to such a scale, and when you see it happening to excuse again genocide, then and like see just like how those gears work, it makes you. It's supposed to make you feel powerless.
No, absolutely. And that's the only narrative you're going to get. And, for somebody who just turns on a normie who just turns on their local news and they hear about the war against of Hamas against Israel. And they're just like, well, that's just what it is. And, the Saints are playing on Amazon Prime tonight. So I'll, getting ready for the game. And I caught my 30 seconds of news. And like, honestly, I don't blame them. They're not stupid. They just don't have the brain for it. Like when I hear something, okay, just take, for example, and this will go into the wider point. The thing that we have to, the upside to all this, it's not doom and gloom. I have to state my optimism, and I know I started off with like accelerationism, but I'm not like coming from a place of pessimism. I'm actually optimistic because, okay, this is what I got objectively. Like, I'm gonna try to put as best as I can as a human being, put my feelings and politics to the side and just step back. Every time Israel says something, within a day, it comes out that it's a lie. You know, and that information breaks through. Every time Hamas is saying something on a Telegram channel, in 30 minutes it's on Al Jazeera. In 2 hours it's on CNN. So I'm like, one side is saying X, and then it turns out to be X. The other side is saying whatever, and it always turns out to be a false. So it's like, well, who am I to believe? They're talking about, you know, Israel's talking about, oh yeah, we've secured all of Gaza. I mean, not all of Gaza, all the north. Well, then why did Tel Aviv just get hit last night with rockets that came from the north? What are you talking about? You're telling me how you killing everybody. Everybody's you got Netanyahu saying when this started, when they started bombing them, they said everybody in Gaza that's a Hamas fighter is a dead man. Dead. We're not talking. We're not doing nothing. We're just coming in there and we're wiping you out. And then the next thing you know, they're like, oh, can we do a little hostage trade? We'll give y'all we'll give y'all 3 days. All right, we can do that. Whatever. Okay. So now it's a month later, and now they're like, oh, we're in control of the north completely, and we're doing so good that we're really trying to do another humanitarian pause, and we want to do a week. And Hamas is like, absolutely not. Why would we deal with you now when you're in a less beneficial position than you were a month ago? I'm watching, and I don't mean to gross anybody out, but I'm watching these videos of just Israeli dudes just getting sniped and getting just blown to bits, and then you turn on Sky or BBC or I-24 or France Channel 4, and they're just like, oh yeah, Israel's taking control, they're winning, and it's like, y'all are out of your mind. Like, that is absolutely not what's happening. We have video evidence of what's happening, and then the propaganda from the IDF and the Israeli State Department is nothing. It's a girl standing on the beach, and it's like, what are y'all talking about? Y'all are killing your own people. Y'all are the Keystone Cops of a military. And I'm just watching videos of y'all just getting run. So what are y'all winning over there? So you're losing on all fronts. So it's like, what? They're not good. And I don't mean in a moralistic way. I mean like in an actual material functional way. Like their military sucks. Their propaganda wing sucks. Their ambassadors and their talking heads, they all suck. The only thing they can do is hit the bomb button. That's it. And tens of thousands of people are dead because they keep hitting the bomb button. But as far as like actual taking any material control away from the resistance axis, it's a complete failure. Yeah. It's like these people never watched. They never woke up on a Saturday morning and watched, the edited version of Apocalypse Now. Whereas, like, Martin Sheen says, every day I sit here, I get weaker, and every day Charlie squats in the bush, he gets stronger. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening here. This is like every other, the Mau Mau, I've said this before, the Mau Mau, Vietnam, Algiers, Afghanistan twice. We can just already just start engraving Gaza 2023 on that, on that wall of successful guerrilla revolutionary action.
Mm-hmm. You're listening to WHIV-LP New Orleans 102.3. This is Good Morning Comrade, goodmorningcomrade.com. This is WHIV-LP 102.3 FM and All Wars. So yeah, it's the one thing I would want to address about what you said, and I agree with most of it, and I actually agree with all of it. But the you mentioned that it's like when there are statements that are put out by Hamas and they manage to be true, but it takes them 2 hours to get from a release to Al Jazeera to CNN, right? And the difference between the United States and that is that as soon as the United States blasts any kind of messaging out, it's going out like on live television. You know what I mean? So that like, and even when there's a retraction or pulling back and the corrections or whatever it is, that's always going to get less information or less attention than the initial lie. If that makes any sense. Like,
no, it makes all the sense in the world.
I mean, people are talking about still to this very day, talking about the number of deaths on October 7th of Israeli civilians. There was like 1,500 was the initial number of civilians that were supposed to have been killed that day. The official counts have gone down and down and down to like less. So, I mean, again, it's still a lot of people, a lot of civilians. If even this holds true. It's like less than 800 or something like that. It's essentially around a half, which is like, again.
Well, now Israel is saying that the majority of civilians killed on October 7th were by the IDF. Because you literally had Tank Girl, you had the Uru girls riding around in the tanks, and their orders were to shoot anything that moves.
Which they do. And again, there was another case just this week of 3 Israeli escapees from escaped hostages from Hamas that escaped, and they were running around with a white flag, and what do you know? The Israeli military kills them because they did the crime of moving, I suppose.
Well, I mean, I want to put on my conspiracy hat for just a moment and just say a couple things about that. Is like, one, I'll take off my conspiracy hat and then put it back on. I've been telling, like, especially like my Muslim friends, I've been telling, because they'll be like, there's a lot of fishy stuff about October. I'm like, you don't even need to go down that road.
Yeah.
Like, it's because I always thought that was like conspiracy cope. Like, but it turns out now Israel's saying that the majority of people were killed by Israeli soldiers. So I'm like, dang, that was surprising. And now I'll put my conspiracy theory hat back on. And I understand what you're saying. Like, it takes a lie can get around the world quicker than the truth, and like nobody cares about the retraction. It's all about the first like shock story or whatever. But this is a new thing that. The actual like truth of the situation of the ground in Israel and in Palestine in any capacity is being reported on by the U.S. news media, like the major, CNN, NBC, ABC, MSNBC, even Fox at some point. This is a new thing. And I think the reason why that's happening is because there is a civil war in the U.S. State Department, to where it's talking about ripping itself apart. I think that it's ripping itself apart to where you've got people who are just like, this can't go on. Not only is it like morally wrong, not only is it terrible, it's bad for U.S. national security. And then other people are just like, my name's Johnny Rico and I'm from Buenos Aires and I say kill them all. So you've got those two factions like fighting against each other, and that's how this stuff gets out. Because we already know that like traditional legacy media takes talking points from the State Department. Yeah. And then the last part was I completely forgot, so I'm gonna let you have it. Dang, I'll remember.
I just wanted to like focus in again on the details of this of the Israeli military killing these hostages, and I'll just go to this report from Reuters.
Mm-hmm.
This is Dateline last December 16th, last week, updated 5 days ago. Headline. Israeli hostages killed in Gaza were holding white flag, official says. This is from Reuters by Mian Labelle. Dateline Jerusalem. 3 Israeli hostages killed mistakenly in Gaza by Israeli forces had been holding up a white flag, a military official said on Saturday, citing an initial inquiry into the incident that has shaken the country. Well, I don't know how shaken Israel is about that. I mean, especially not the government. I don't think they actually care. It's a controversy for them, but like,
yeah.
A soldier saw the hostages emerging tens of meters from Israeli forces on Friday. on Friday in Shujaiya, an area of intense combat in northern Gaza where Hamas militants operate in civilian attire and use deception tactics, the official said. So, by the way, this is something that like constantly comes up when it comes to talking about like why, like when Israel like kills so many civilians, they say that they have to do so because like Hamas uses them as human shields. Well, like if you have a human shield, like think about it, if you're a cop or something, right? If somebody's holding a human shield in front of you in a given like situation, do you just shoot the human shield to kill them in order to kill the other person? Like
that's the thing.
Is that what you're supposed to do?
I think I've said this in other shows. Is like I'm not talking about the morals of, you know, October 7th or anything like that, where there's good or bad. Like, death is bad.
Sure.
Murder is bad. Taking hostage is bad. I'm talking about from a purely, you know, subjective, strategic move. The mistake that Hamas made was not taking hostages. The mistake was thinking those hostages had value to the Israeli government. Because they're showing they don't have any value.
And on that point, like obviously killing even your own civilians, or killing your own civilians or hostages from your place, that's also a war crime. Killing killing civilians of another place, despite the fact that like they're bombing hospitals, a war crime. Like literally, these things, like you're killing somebody holding the white flag. That is like a war crime. Not that actually matters in this like, you know, framework, this like quote unquote rules based order that you know supposedly exists. But like the idea that these things are supposed to be like rules for a reason, and like if I don't know, man, like the fact that like. What do you think? Like the fact that like they're holding a red flag or white flag rather, and
well, they gave it away. Did you see the whole? I want to say it was on Sky News. You saw the thing with they said. Well, the reason why, unfortunately, the Israeli spokesperson said. Unfortunately, the reason why they got shot is because a lot of time Hamas members like to dress like the civilian population,
right.
And it's like time out. So what you're saying is anybody, like if they run, going back to Apocalypse Now, if they run, they're Viet Cong, and if they stand still, they're disciplined Viet Cong. That's what you're telling me. So you're telling me it's green light on exactly what we've all been saying. It's a genocide. It's a genocide. It's a genocide. It's green light on anything that moves and draws breath.
Yes. Kill everything that moves, and they're also trying to do this while framing themselves as the most moral military on earth, which is just again one of those things that I mean it's perverse. It's like again, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that anymore. Like the idea of a progressive military or whatever is also just hilarious to me, or a moral military. And again, the other part too is that like there's no official military that exists for like for Hamas or for like in Gaza. Like they're not. It ain't like that. Like no. They're not going to be dressed like they're not going to be dressed in tactical military uniforms like the IDF is, because they're not a state military. Like of course they're going to be dressed like civilians because they're, I don't know. They're not a military.
Because they live there. They're just dudes who rather not be doing this. Like that's the thing. That's. I mean, that goes to what I just said. Is like they're dudes who rather not be doing this. Yeah, they're literal guys like you and me, who'd rather be just like smoking hashish and playing PlayStation. They don't want to do this. But this is where they live. This is their home. They're on death ground. It's it's victory or death, and that's the thing. It's the stuff we always talk about over beers. It's like that's how you know they're not serious. Not only did Israel prop up Hamas as the only viable solution for the Palestinians, they also besides just propping them up, they obviously are not serious about wrestling power away from Hamas and not making them the de facto government in the Strip, because if they were, the quickest way to do that would be to create conditions to where people wouldn't want to engage in guerrilla war in the street, and you do that by satiating people's material and their needs. It's just that simple.
Mm-hmm. And again, like, this is like what you're saying about the Israeli government and the Netanyahu administration propping up Hamas. That's not like conspiracy talk either. That has been reported in the New York Times.
He said it himself.
He said that is a part of the strategy for many years by the Netanyahu administration and his ilk to actually prevent the emergence of any kind of Palestinian statehood or any kind of support. And he brags about the fact that a Palestinian state has not been achieved in any way because of the actions of the Netanyahu administration and again that party. And again, what do they always say, or what does the United States say to sort of launder all of this? And both Israel and the United States say to launder the fact that there's no even serious negotiations towards any kind of Palestinian statehood or recognition, or two state, one state, who cares? They always say that there's nobody to negotiate with. Yeah, of course. You don't want to negotiate. I mean, if you look back to Arafat, I mean, again, you cannot say that he would not negotiate. He bent over backwards, after putting the arms down, after Fatah put their arms down, he bent over backwards to attempt to get a Palestinian state. And every single time that they would come to any kind of even close to a deal, what would happen? One, Israel would say, get out of here, we reject this. And two, they would also send settlers into both Gaza and the West Bank to weaken the Palestinian position. And it's not to say that Arafat wasn't corrupt or anything else like that, but it's just like that is somebody that you cannot say was not interested in some kind of Palestinian statehood. And
some kind of something.
Everything that could possibly be done to make that happen. Like, bent over, forwards, backwards, did a flip and everything, jumped through every single hoop that was available, and they still kicked him in the teeth.
Right. One thing I remember what I was going to say like 15 minutes ago, going back to the three hostages that were just, roaming around the Gaza Strip. What that shows me too, that those guys were even just free, they escaped like that, was that, putting my conjecture hat back on, my conspiracy hat, that when Hamas went through the wall and they started taking out military bases and stuff, behind them were just dudes that just came through and just did whatever. Because the idea to me, this is what makes the most sense about those three, is that if they were just roaming around the Gaza Strip free, they got escaped or whatever, they were never held by Hamas. And they were grabbed by guys who took them back to Gaza, but didn't have access to the tunnels because they're not Hamas. That's what I'm thinking, and I don't even think they're even. I don't think they're even like Palestinian Popular Liberation Front guys or Democratic Liberation Front guys or even Islamic Jihad guys because. There's no way, if Hamas had been planning that attack for over a year, they wouldn't have shared that with those other factions. Because the more people who know about it, especially people that they don't control, the easier it is for their plan to get leaked. Which it got leaked anyway, and Israel just ignored it. It got leaked to U.S. intelligence and also Egyptian intelligence, and Israel just ignored it. I'm not saying they let it happen. I'm saying that they're so racist. This is where they're like the Nazis again. They're so racist, and it's a combination of racism, incompetence, and just apathy to where they thought like, oh, these dirty Arabs can't do anything. Yeah, whatever. Because they even the report that came out is that Israel called it aspirational, but there's no way they could have done it. Mm-hmm. So that makes me think that it wasn't even Hamas that did a lot of that killing. They were in there to kill military guys, and they were there to snatch people. That's just me just putting things together. Yeah. But obviously, I'm biased on that. But even if they did, it doesn't matter. I don't care. They're under occupation. Of that, I'll be the first. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, and again, the idea of, or the rhetoric that's been rolled out by Israel as a justification, stopping Hamas, quote unquote, using your fingers or whatever, has been used as a justification to kill so many civilians and to do essentially the displacement, genocide, and colonialism that we talk about over and over again, right? So Hamas is very, even now, still extremely useful for the Israeli government and for every, all the Zionist propagandists and, people that support what's going on right now, to basically say, well, if you, hey, I would like for people to stop. I would like a ceasefire. I would like for people to stop being murdered right now, please. Like, literally, the first thing that they always will say is, why do you support Hamas? And it's like, man, I just want you to stop killing people. I want you to stop murdering civilians and blowing up hospitals and refugee camps and all these other things. It's got nothing to do with Hamas. I mean, it's got nothing to do with supporting Hamas. The fact that you're killing civilians after civilians is just like,
I don't know. I'm kind of, again, this is me being doom-pilled, whatever. Yeah. I'm to the point where if somebody wants to come at me with that, because as soon as they come at you with that, it's they're being, evasive.
They want you to denounce Hamas or whatever.
First thing I'm going to say is, I'm going to, start carrying around a copy of their charter and be like, let's go through it, because I don't condemn Hamas. How about that? How about I don't?
I just dance around.
I don't care.
And I basically focus on what's happening and don't. I try to steer the conversation away from Hamas, because I think just getting involved in the do you or don't you condemn Hamas is a complete distraction. From
absolutely happening. It is. But I'll be the first one. But I'm the guy that's just like, I don't. Yeah. So I don't care.
What if I do?
So what if I do? And let's talk about that. I'm like, do you condemn John Brown? Or just I don't fuss with people who John Brown would have ventilated. I don't do that anymore. I'm done with that. It's like, do you condemn Nat Turner? Do you condemn John Brown? Do you condemn Louverture? Get out of here. I don't care. Yeah. We fought. We murdered people in this country over taxes, over tea. What are you talking about?
The Ohio River Valley.
Yeah, I'm not trying to hear all that. That's our origin story. Is rich white men. Rich white slave-owning men, landowners, were mad about they had to pay more taxes, and so therefore people had to die. And you want me to condemn Hamas? Get out of here with that. I don't want to hear it. I'm over.
One of the funniest things about it's not funny. It's like dark, but one of the wild things about American history in this very specific sense is that one of the reasons that the United States, people like Washington, literally large landholders in places like Virginia, the reason that they wanted to go to war is because the state of England basically said, hey, y'all need to stop pushing further west and getting in all these fights with Native Americans, because that's causing us all kinds of problems. We don't want to get into a big mess up with France again, literally. And it was oh no, we have to throw off the king's yoke, because they won't let us just expand further west and do further colonialism.
No, it's true. I mean,
that is American history. That is
history is written by the victors and all that, and we'll launder and sanitize anybody's justifications and turn it into a hot dog weenie roast and fireworks display. But yet these people have been for 75 years just going back to the accelerationist argument that I had in the beginning, where you talk about why would Hamas do this? Because you know that Israel's going to respond like this. Well, it's they respond like that anyway. It's just on a smaller scale. So these people that they've been killing, I hate to say it like this, but they were dead anyway, because it's
the damned
kill
if
us,
you do, damned if you don't. The quick way or the hard way.
Drip feed. It's drip feed, murder everybody, or do it all in one go. But at the end of the day, it's all the same. So if they knew that Israel was going to overreact like this, I don't want to say they let them come in, because they were definitely fighting, but the plan was to let them come in. They can take whatever land, and I've seen again with those Telegram channels. This is I'm almost quoting it verbatim. You can come in, you can take whatever land you want in Gaza, but you'll leave the way that we decide you can leave, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Come on in, good luck getting out.
Yeah, it's a Roach Motel. You can come in, you can check in, but you can't check out, and that's what's happening. Is these guys have tunnels, on the outskirts of Gaza, so when the IDF rolls in and they take a place with air quotes, they now have command and control over an area. Well, guess what? Those guys are popping up in their rear, inside the wire. It's like the equivalent would be is if during Iraq in the Green Zone that there were like Al-Qaeda tunnels that they were just popping up in these bases, because that's what's happening in Gaza right now. They're behind them and they're just murdering them. And it's just like, go on home, British soldiers, go on home. Don't you have no home of your own? You better go home before your whole, experiment, your whole project of a state falls apart and tears itself apart. You better make peace. But they don't want to make peace because, again, it's the incompetency, it's the reliance on tech, and it's the racism. They think like somehow this is going to work out for them, like it always has, and it's not this time.
Which,
it's obviously not.
Which is by the way, garden variety settler colonialism. That happened with all of them, every single one, from the United States to England to France to just like the entire history of settler colonialism is that
they're saying. Israel said we will put our shield generator right here on Endor, and there's nothing these little fuzzy teddy bears can do to stop us. And they're seeing that. Oh, wait a minute! Those teddy bears are wrecking shop.
Yeah.
These Ewoks are not to be played with, and that's what you're seeing right now.
They have giant logs that they're smashing our scout walkers with.
Heck yeah, dude! You know it. Taking off on speeder bikes. It's going crazy.
Yeah.
Well, it's about that time.
Yeah, we got to wrap it up. I did want to do a quick, I know this is a long Palestine episode. I think we should talk about this potentially next week.
Sure.
But I did want to do a quick shout out on the way out. Nurses at University Medical Center this week just voted yes to join National Nurses United. They won their union election just last week, so shouts out to them. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of get that in really quick towards the end. We can talk about it potentially in the future, but I think it's one of the biggest union victories in the South in a very, very long time, and it shows that organizing is possible in the South. All that it takes is a bit of investment and coordination and organizing, and workers talking to their co-workers and making it happen. So I don't know. Anything else on the way out there, Robert?
In Robert's video game corner, I am playing Ready or Not, which is it's a first-person shooter, but it's a dad game because it's a SWAT simulator. Okay. And you kick in doors as SWAT and you stop active shootings and all that.
There you go.
But it's not propaganda. It's not propaganda. It's very much so the parts that you're in the station, doing your briefings or whatever, and there's the propaganda that's all over the police station is just our job is not to create widows and orphans. It's to restore order. It's just the police are not above the law, because the way you win the game is by being a good cop. It doesn't, so the guy has a gun, and you have to be freeze, police, put it down. And he might not put it down instantly, but that doesn't mean you just get to double tap him. Mm-hmm. So you have to actually wait till he pulls up ready, he clears leather, and then, you have free fire. But you actually have to follow the rules of engagement. And I think it's very, I don't know. I feel like it's very timely right now with the way that the joke of the Israeli army and government conduct themselves.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get back together next week. Have a good holiday if you celebrate Christmas or whatever.
Merry Christmas.
But yeah, they were literally canceled in Bethlehem.
Yeah, it's canceled. It's canceled here too.
So the war on Christmas is finally successful. We did it, folks. But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. This is Good Morning Comrade. We love you. Bye bye.
Viva Palestine.